Fantastic. Can everybody hear? Yes, all good. Thank you. Thanks very much, Michael. As Michael said, my name is Matthew Oakey, and I'm the aerial survey principal at Historic England, and I'm going to talk to you about the work that our team does to support Historic England's Heritage at Risk programme. So Historic England's Heritage at Risk Register provides a dynamic picture of the sites most at risk and most need of safeguarding for the future. So the register is an official statistic of the UK government, and as such, it provides an important barometer for the condition of heritage assets in England. And it's also a very valuable tool for communicating the presence and value of heritage to local communities. The Heritage at Risk Register doesn't encompass all known historical sites, but instead it represents a subset of designated heritage assets. So that's those sites which are deemed to have particular significance, giving them statutory protection and particular consideration in the planning process. The Heritage at Risk programme was originally focused specifically on listed buildings, but its scope has gradually been expanded to include a broader range of heritage assets. And currently, there are a total of 4,891 entries on the register. So that was in 2024. The 2025 revision is due soon. And out of these, 1,895 were archaeological sites. So the register is actually maintained by specialist staff who work on the Heritage at Risk programme. And their role includes undertaking risk assessments using predefined assessment methodologies. Assessments commonly rely on ground visits, but aerial survey data can often be used to provide a desk-based element to the process. It's also used for triaging sites as well, so doing that first pass of sites to establish where it's most economical to undertake a ground visit. Although aerial photography can be used to help inform heritage risk assessments of buildings, as illustrated in this image here, which shows a series of 4 bottle kilns or bottle ovens. So these are to do with the ceramic manufacturing date from the 19th century. This paper will specifically explore how remote sensing data are used within Historic England to monitor archaeological sites from the air. And we'll also be looking at how the analysis of historical aerial imagery can help us to understand past land use and changes in monument condition over longer periods of time. So some of you will be familiar with our reconnaissance programme. So Historic England's Area Reconnaissance Programme operates from 2 locations in the north and south of the country. And we fly the entire country from these 2 bases. We fly around about 280 hours per year and collect data for a variety of purposes. Although our area reconnaissance programme is probably best known for discovery, monitoring of archaeological sites from the air is also a very, very significant strand of our work. And the range and flexibility that aerial survey provides makes it an efficient and cost-effective way to collect data that can be used to help assess the condition of scheduled monuments. So we have around 20,000 scheduled archaeological sites in England, so it's obviously not possible to do repeat photography on those on an annual basis. So instead, we tend to prioritise our sites on those sites which haven't been photographed for a period of 5 years or more. But we also get requests from other parts of Historic England, or also it can be requests from external partners, such as national park authorities, for example. Now, threats to sites are many and varied, and some can only be effectively assessed through ground visits. But there are a number of threats, however, that can be identified using aerial photography. And this is an image of the Great Hill Bronze Age barrow down in Dorset. And this illustrates the common and widespread impacts of animal burrowing and also clipping from farm machinery as the field is cultivated. So the green area is the actual set-aside land, which is the location of the barrow itself. While this damage appears to be minor, the compound effect over a number of years has the potential to significantly impinge on the monument. Now, scheduling doesn't automatically prohibit arable cultivation of archaeological sites. So this photo illustrates the degradation of a Neolithic long barrow just in the top of the image and a pair of Bronze Age round barrows as the archaeological deposits are brought to the surface and show as soil marks. So for sites in cultivation, aerial reconnaissance can be an effective way of monitoring agricultural regimes, and in particular identifying the presence of those regimes which are particularly damaging to subsurface deposits, so for example planting of potato crops. Now, while most threats to archaeological monuments result from attritional activities such as arable ploughing or neglect, occasionally more deliberate acts of damage also impact archaeological sites. So aerial survey assistance is often requested following identification of or suspicion of damage from ground-based staff. So as well as providing a useful record of this damage, aerial photography can also access difficult to reach places or those sites that are potentially hazardous for ground access. But it's not uncommon for the aerial archaeologist to identify potential issues from the air. So in 2011, during routine reconnaissance flight, fresh activity was spotted on the site of Pretty Circles, so the three Neolithic henge monuments in the south of England, the most southern of which is illustrated on this slide. So here, the landowner had caused significant damage to the monument. And this is a particularly extreme case that actually resulted in a criminal conviction and a fine of £10,000 under the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Areas Act. As well as site-specific photography, our aerial reconnaissance program is also an effective way to address large-scale strategic threats. Perhaps the most most significant currently being the effects of climate change on the historic environment. So around 1,700 scheduled monuments are located within 1 kilometre of England's coastline. And while coastal erosion has been happening for millennia, climate change is acting as a risk multiplier, with sea level rises, increased storm damage, and hydrological changes, if you'd say, making many coastal sites more unstable. So the medieval moated site, Grimston Garth, that we can see illustrated here, gives a really, really fantastic example of that. So this site was once located very, very far inland, but coastal erosion over many decades means that it's very, very significantly under threat. And that coastal erosion is its principal vulnerability on the HAR register. So at this particular location, the 15-year period between 2003 and 2018, there was 34 meters of loss of the land on this cliff. So regular monitoring has provided a record of the monument over time. And also historical photography, an example of which you see in the top left of the slide there, vividly illustrates the landscape change at this location. The site of the Battle of Cropredy Bridge is a registered battlefield and is shown in this image following torrential rainfall. This has caused significant soil erosion, where essentially the field boundaries have been acting as temporary dams, and then the water has been fanning out onto the adjoining field. So in this particular case, there are implications for the redistribution of small finds evidence, for example. So the previous examples have shown the direct impacts of climate change, but indirect impacts can also have implications for the historic environment as well. And this can include changing agricultural regimes and climate change mitigation measures. So here in the Upper Plym Valley, we have peat restoration seen surrounding a scheduled round cairn that you can just see just to the bottom of the centre of the image. So this actually falls within the project area for the project that Katie Whitaker spoke about at last year's ARG. And the results of that project were actually instrumental in informing the location of these peat restoration works. So as well as providing evidence for condition assessments, aerial photographs are also a very important and engaging medium for communicating risks to heritage managers and the general public. So here we can just see a couple of examples of our aerial photography being used to illustrate web pages on climate change and flood guidance. So while aerial photography provides an effective way of both proactively and reactively collecting new data, analysis of existing data can provide valuable insights to support better management. While this isn't necessarily an efficient or appropriate methodology to use as a routine assessment tool, it can be used for individual cases where a more detailed and nuanced understanding of land management history is required. So for most of England, regular aerial photo coverage has been collected from the mid-1940s onwards. And our collection at Historic England that's housed down in Swindon has over 6 million aerial photographs in it that can record that land management change in the intervening decades. And alongside this, we're also using modern data sets like orthophotography and our national LiDAR coverage. So this is a really, really good example of the value of historic photography. So this is a block house on the eastern tip of Mersey Island in Essex. It was commissioned by King Henry VIII in 1543 and housed gun emplacements designed to protect the entrance to the strategically important Colne estuary. And recent analysis of aerial photographs, which were taken between 1940 and 2024, show how coastal erosion has been impacting on that site. And a particularly interesting observation was the fact that this was actually accelerating from 2000 onwards. So this site has now been subject to ground investigation and we'll continue to monitor it from the air. Indirect threats to sites can also include things like a lack of understanding and inadequate recording and also inaccurate spatial information. So this is the case of Mere End Down Barrow, and this illustrates this particularly well. So in an attempt to preserve the monument, we've had an island that has been taken out of arable cultivation. But what analysis of the historical photography showed was that not only was this island gradually reducing in size over time, it was also starting to migrate a little bit across the field. So it got to the point where it wasn't adequately protecting this monument. And so this data was actually then able to be used to put a new area of arable reversion in to better manage the monument in consultation with the landowner. And the Lincolnshire Long Barrows project took this to a broader and more strategic approach by addressing heritage management issues at a landscape scale. So Neolithic barrows are a particular monument class of national significance, and we have a notable regional cluster in the county of Lincolnshire in the east of England. Many of them are under arable cultivation, making them particularly vulnerable to degradation. And in 2016, almost 40% of the scheduled barrows within the county were on the Heritage at Risk register, and a further 23% were considered vulnerable. So reversion under agri-environmental stewardship schemes has been used as a method of managing some of the scheduled long barrows by taking them out of cultivation. However, some areas of arable reversion were based on potentially inaccurate scheduled information, meaning that they might be taken off the HAR register, but won't actually be any better protected. And this is just an illustration where we have the location of the barrow. That is the location of the scheduled monument as it was. And so that's an area of arable reversion, which is based on the area of the scheduled monument, but is obviously very, very inadequately protecting the actual barrow itself. And the project also evaluated several records for sites that weren't already scheduled, and based on the results of this, 22 have been subsequently scheduled. So this means that they can be more actively managed. Although the focus of aerial survey tends to be on archaeological monuments, it can also be applied to different asset types. So the London Borough of Enfield contains 5 designated landscapes that are on the Register of Parks and Gardens. And so to support ongoing discussions about the management of these parks with the local authority, my colleague Ed undertook an analysis of the historical photography for these parks. And here we can see at Grovelands Park, for example, that we've got the impact of the self-seeded woodland on the legibility of the designed landscape, so quite severely affecting that. So we've seen how airborne remote sensing data provides valuable information to support Historic England's Heritage at Risk programme. And while our staff in the aerial survey team provide specialist expertise in the capture and detailed analysis of historical and modern sources, aerial data are also routinely used by other Historic England staff for monitoring the monument condition. And we're currently reviewing the role of aerial data in the Heritage at Risk programme. So this is including some systematic testing of both ground-based and aerial methodologies to get some better, more watertight data, and also looking at how the feedback loop can actually also better inform where and how we do our aerial photography. And future developments are likely to include some elements of AI, such as how we incorporate satellite data and also analytical techniques, such as automated change detection. So thank you for listening.